You wake up and within 60 seconds it starts. The phone. The notifications. The low-grade hum of anxiety that sits right behind your sternum like a second heartbeat. Before you've even had a glass of water, your mind is already somewhere else, replaying yesterday, forecasting tomorrow, scanning for threats that don't exist yet. And here's what nobody tells you, that isn't just a bad morning. That's a trained response. You've trained yourself to be reactive. You've trained yourself to flinch first and think second. And every single day you keep training it, you are paying for it with the one thing you can't get back, your own clarity, your own presence, your own life. The world rewards the person who can think clearly when everyone else has lost their mind. And that capacity is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with. It's not reserved for monks on mountaintops or generals in war rooms. It is a trained skill. And right now, you are either training it or you are training its opposite. Most people think calm is something you find. Calm isn't something you find. Calm is something you build. And you build it the same way you build anything, through repetition, through discipline, through choosing the hard thing over the easy thing, day after day after day. Here's the costly mistake most people make. They try to quiet the mind while the body is screaming. They try to think their way out of chaos while running on 4 hours of sleep, 3 cups of coffee, and a nervous system that hasn't felt safe in weeks. They treat stillness like a thought experiment when stillness is a full-body practice. And then they wonder why meditation doesn't work. They wonder why their journaling feels hollow. They wonder why they still don't feel whole, they still don't feel like themselves. The truth nobody wants to say out loud is this: you cannot think your way into stillness. Stillness is not a mental state. It's an alignment. It requires 3 things working together: your mind, your body, and your spirit. If any one of those is chaotic, the other 2 cannot hold. If your body is frantic, your mind cannot be still. If your spirit is unfulfilled, your mind will race. If your mind is cluttered, your body will carry the tension. They are not separate systems. They are one system. And you have been treating them like they aren't. Let's start with the body, because here's what nobody tells you: the body comes first. Not because the body is more important than the mind, but because the body is the foundation the mind stands on. You can sit on a cushion for an hour and try to empty your thoughts, but if you're sleep-deprived, over-caffeinated, undernourished, and holding tension in your jaw that you don't even notice anymore, you are not meditating. You are fighting your own physiology. And physiology always wins. Sleep is the most underrated form of stillness that exists. Not sleep as a luxury. Not sleep as something you'll catch up on this weekend. Sleep as a non-negotiable, as something you protect the way you'd protect your child. Because that's what it is. It's the thing that makes everything else possible. A tired mind cannot be still. A tired body cannot hold steady. A tired spirit cannot find meaning. And yet you keep sacrificing sleep for productivity, as if productivity means anything when you're operating at 60% of your capacity. You keep telling yourself you'll sleep when things calm down. Things will never calm down. You have to calm down. And sleep is how you start. Then there's movement. Not exercise as punishment. Not the gym as a performance. Movement as medicine. Walking, specifically. Walking without your phone. Walking without a podcast in your ears. Walking without a destination. This is something the greatest thinkers in history understood intuitively. They walked to solve problems. They walked to untangle thoughts. They walked because the body in motion has a way of sorting what the mind cannot. When you walk in silence, your subconscious starts doing the work your conscious mind has been failing at. Solutions arrive not because you force them but because you created the conditions for them. You stopped gripping. You stopped straining. You let the body move and the mind follow. Most people call this a morning routine. The Stoics would call it a foundation. Because here's the difference, a routine is something you perform. A foundation is something you stand on. When the ground shakes, you don't need a routine. You need a foundation. And the body is that foundation. Without it, everything else collapses. Now let's talk about the mind, because this is where most people start and this is where most people fail. They start with the mind because it feels like the mind is the problem. The racing thoughts. The overthinking. The spiraling. The inability to be alone with yourself for 30 seconds without reaching for your phone. And so they try to fix the mind with the mind. They try to think their way out of overthinking. They try to worry their way out of worry. It's like trying to put out a fire by throwing matches at it. The mind doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be emptied. And it needs to be protected. Here's what nobody tells you about your mind: it was not designed for the amount of information you're forcing through it. Your brain is an extraordinarily powerful instrument, but it is not infinite. Every notification, every headline, every text message, every scroll through a feed, that's not free. That costs you. It costs you attention. It costs you focus. It costs you the capacity for deep, original thought. And you've been spending that currency like it's unlimited. You need to limit your inputs. Not mildly. Not sometimes. Aggressively. Turn off the notifications. All of them. Not just the social ones. All of them. Your phone should not be a slot machine in your pocket that you reach for every 40 seconds. It should be a tool you use when you choose to use it. Stop consuming news like it's oxygen. It's not. It's junk food for your anxiety. It makes you feel informed while making you less capable of clear thought. Pick a time. 10 minutes a day. That's it. Anything beyond that is not awareness. It's self-harm dressed up as responsibility. Then there's journaling. Not journaling as a diary. Not journaling as a performance for an audience. Journaling as a pressure release valve. Your mind is a pressure cooker. All day long, thoughts and fears and anxieties and ideas are building up inside it. And if you don't open the valve, that pressure doesn't go away. It finds another way out, through your temper, through your sleep, through the tension in your neck, through the shortness of your patience with the people you love. Writing it down moves it from the inside to the outside. It takes the chaos and puts it into words, and words have structure, and structure is the beginning of order. You don't have to write something profound. You just have to write something honest. What are you afraid of? What are you avoiding? What is the thing you keep thinking about but won't say out loud? Write it down. Look at it. You'll be amazed at how much smaller it gets when it's on a page instead of in your head. And then there's the pause. This is the most important thing I can tell you about the mind. Between something happening to you and your response to it, there is a space. Most people don't know that space exists. They think stimulus and response are the same thing. They think reaction is inevitable. It's not. There is a gap. And in that gap lies everything: your freedom, your power, your dignity as a human being. The person who can stay calm when everything is falling apart is not the person who feels less. They are the person who has trained themselves to find that gap. To widen it. To stand in it for 1 second longer than the version of themselves who would have reacted. 1 second. That's all it takes. 1 second between the insult and the reply. 1 second between the bad news and the response. 1 second between the urge and the action. In that second, you are not an animal. You are not a machine. You are a person making a choice. And that choice is everything. Most people call this self-control. I call it stillness. Same thing. The ability to not move when everything in you wants to move. The ability to not speak when everything in you wants to speak. The ability to sit with discomfort and not run from it. That is stillness. And it is a skill. And it can be trained. Now the spirit. This is the domain people understand the least and need the most. Because here's what nobody tells you: you can have a still mind and a healthy body and still feel like you're falling apart. You can do every meditation, eat every right food, sleep 8 hours, and still wake up with a hole in your chest. That hole is not a mind problem. That hole is not a body problem. That is a spirit problem. And no amount of mindfulness will fill it. The spirit is about purpose. It's about meaning. It's about the answer to the question that you keep avoiding because you're afraid the answer might be uncomfortable. What are you doing all of this for? What is the point? Not what should you do. Not what would look good. Not what would make other people respect you. What is the thing that, if you were doing it, you would feel like yourself? Most people can't answer that question. And that's why they're restless. That's why they're anxious. That's why they can't sit still even when everything is fine. Because everything is not fine. Everything is fine on the surface and empty underneath. And the mind knows it even if you won't admit it. Here's the truth: if your highest goal is external success, money, status, approval, you will never have stillness. Because those things are moving targets. They are never enough. You get the promotion and within a week you're thinking about the next one. You get the validation and within a day you need more of it. It's like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. They said, choose virtue as your highest goal. Not because virtue sounds noble. Because virtue is the only goal that doesn't depend on anything outside of you. Integrity. Courage. Honesty. Kindness. Discipline. These are things you control completely. No one can take them from you. No circumstance can destroy them. When you orient your life around being a certain kind of person rather than getting a certain kind of result, something shifts. The noise gets quieter. Not because the world changed. Because you did. And then there's anger. Anger is the ultimate enemy of stillness. It is hot where stillness is cool. It is chaotic where stillness is ordered. It is loud where stillness is silent. And most people don't understand their own anger. They think they're angry because of what someone did. They're not. They're angry because they expected the world to be a certain way and it wasn't. They're angry because they feel out of control. Anger is what happens when reality collides with expectation and you refuse to update the expectation. So you hold on to it. You carry it. You let it calcify into resentment. And that resentment becomes a permanent low-grade fever in your spirit that makes stillness impossible. You have to let it go. Not because the person who wronged you deserves forgiveness. Because you deserve peace. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. It's about closing the account so you stop paying interest on a debt that isn't yours. Anger is a tax you pay on someone else's behavior. Stop paying it. And while you're at it, forgive yourself. For every mistake you're still carrying. For every version of you that wasn't as good as the version you are now. For every opportunity you missed, every relationship you mishandled, every moment you wish you could redo. You can't redo it. You can only stop letting it poison the present. Self-forgiveness is not weakness. It's hygiene. It's cleaning the wound so it can heal. And you've been leaving wounds open for years, wondering why they still hurt. Now let me bring all of this together, because understanding the three domains is not enough. You need a protocol. You need something you do every single day, not because you feel like it, but because the discipline of doing it is what builds the capacity. You don't build stillness when you feel calm. You build stillness when you don't, and you do the thing anyway. Here's what that looks like. Start with the body. Protect your sleep like it's your job. 7 hours minimum. Not 7 hours in bed. 7 hours asleep. That means no screens for the last hour before bed. Not because screens are evil, but because the light and the input are telling your nervous system that it's daytime and there are threats to process. Give your body permission to power down. When you wake up, don't reach for your phone. Give yourself 30 minutes. Just 30 minutes where the first input of your day is not someone else's voice. Drink water. Move your body. Walk if you can. Walk outside if you can. Walk without your phone. Walk without input. Let your body move and your mind settle. This is not wasted time. This is the most productive thing you will do all day, because it creates the conditions for everything else. Then the mind. Journal. Every morning, before the world gets in. 5 minutes. Not a diary. A dump. Everything you're afraid of. Everything you're avoiding. Everything that's circling. Get it out of your head and onto the page. Then, throughout the day, practice the pause. Every time something happens, a text that makes your stomach tighten, an email that makes your jaw clench, a conversation that makes your heart rate spike, stop. 1 breath. 1 second. That's the gap. Stand in it. Ask yourself, is this reaction necessary? Is this response mine, or is it automatic? Then choose. Not react. Choose. And limit your inputs. This is not optional. The person who consumes everything cannot think clearly about anything. Pick your information deliberately. A book. A conversation. A single article. Not an endless scroll. Not a feed designed by engineers to keep you anxious and engaged. You are not a user. You are a person. Act like one. Then the spirit. Connect to something larger than yourself. I don't care what it is. It could be nature. It could be prayer. It could be service. It could be art. It could be the simple act of being fully present with another human being without looking at your phone. The spirit needs to know that the story is bigger than the self. When you live only for yourself, every problem feels enormous because you are the entire universe. When you connect to something larger, your problems shrink. Not because they changed. Because your context did. And practice acceptance. This is the hardest one. Acceptance is not passivity. Acceptance is not giving up. Acceptance is looking at reality exactly as it is, without flinching, without pretending, without adding a narrative about how unfair it is, and then asking, "What do I do now?" The Stoics called this amor fati. Not just tolerating what happens, but embracing it. Not because it's good. Because it's real. And you can only act on what's real. Everything else is fantasy, and fantasy has never fixed anything. Marcus Aurelius called this the inner citadel. He said that no matter what is happening outside of you, there is a space inside your mind that no one can violate. Not a bad day. Not a crisis. Not a loss. Not betrayal. Not chaos. That space is yours. But here's the thing he understood that most people miss: that space is not automatically available. It has to be built. It has to be maintained. It has to be reinforced every single day through the practices I've just described. You don't retreat to the inner citadel when the siege begins. You build it during peacetime, so that when the siege comes, the walls hold. And the siege will come. That's the thing about life. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It doesn't check if you've had enough sleep or if your spirit is aligned or if your mind is clear. It just comes. And when it comes, the only question that matters is, have you built the capacity to meet it? Because here's what I've seen again and again. The people who stay calm when everything is falling apart are not the people who feel less fear. They feel the same fear you do. They feel the same grief, the same anger, the same overwhelming urge to do something reckless. The difference is they have trained themselves, in the body, in the mind, in the spirit, to hold. To not move when everything says move. To not speak when everything says speak. To breathe when breathing feels impossible. To stand in the gap and choose. That's what stillness is. Not the absence of chaos. The presence of choice within chaos. And it doesn't come from a single meditation session. It doesn't come from a weekend retreat. It doesn't come from reading the right words at the right time. It comes from the daily, unglamorous, repetitive work of building the foundation. Of sleeping when you'd rather scroll. Of walking when you'd rather drive. Of writing when you'd rather avoid. Of pausing when you'd rather react. Of forgiving when you'd rather hold the grudge. Of accepting when you'd rather resist. Of choosing virtue when the world rewards vice. Nobody sees this work. That's the point. It's invisible. It's the thing you do when no one is watching, when no one will know, when there's no audience and no applause. And it is the most important thing you will ever do. Because the person you become through that work is the person who will be there when everything falls apart. Not the person who hopes they'll rise to the occasion. The person who knows they will, because they've been rising every single day in ways no one ever saw. So here's my question to you. Not what would you do if everything fell apart? What are you doing right now, while things are still standing, to prepare for the moment they won't be? Because that moment is coming. It comes for everyone. And the difference between the person who breaks and the person who holds is not luck. It's not genetics. It's not circumstance. It's preparation. It's the work. It's the daily, quiet, invisible work of building stillness into your body, your mind, and your spirit until it becomes who you are. Stillness is not something you find. It's something you build. And you build it now. Not later. Not when things calm down. Now. Because later is too late, and now is all you have. Stay still. Stay steady. Choose stillness over noise. Choose presence over panic. Choose the foundation over the performance. And when everything falls apart, and it will, you will be the one who holds. Stay disciplined.